TGIF, everybody. Welcome into the First Call podcast. For First Bet and Express Bet, I'm Jeremy Plonk. He is Scott Shapiro. We are not the men in black, but we are both donned in the black today. Maybe we'll be like the silver and black. Just win, baby. That's what we're looking for this weekend with our picks on the podcast. We're going to look at 8 races across the country on this Memorial Day weekend, and we've got action coming up for you Saturday, Sunday, and Monday as far as our stakes picks go. Got some great promos at First Bet and Express Bet Friday through Sunday, where you can play the $3,000 late pick 4 hit and split at Santa Anita. And I say that because Santa Anita racing today on Friday means the return of Jeff Siegel. He's back handicapping, so we're really happy to have Jeff back, and that's why we lead the podcast with that. He's got his written analysis up for Santa Anita for the Friday card at First Bet and Express Bet. So check out the websites there and get Jeff's analysis on those races. Scott and I are going to get handicapping on a big weekend. Scott, welcome into the show.
Thank you. Great news on Jeff, Jeremy. Of course, always good to hear that. Love the positivity we got to see on social media, not something he's overly active on all the time. So always a great sign when we see that. And obviously kind of a little bit of a week where we're in between the biggest of races, but there's some pretty fun stakes races throughout the land, especially at Santa Anita.
We also have opening night at Canterbury Park on Saturday. So racing in Minnesota, one of the more fun on-track experiences if you ever make your way out to Shakopee, Minnesota. Canterbury Park opens its season on Saturday night, and we get to hear the great voice of Paul Allen back on the mic. Always enjoy Paul. He's a little disturbed right now, though, that the Timberwolves are down to the Thunder 0-2. So maybe Canterbury will put a smile on the face of Paul Allen there with his T-Wolves down 0-2 in the series. We are going to take a look at the races that Scott and I will handicap. For those of you on our video channels, whether you're watching on X or YouTube, be sure to like and comment in the comment section about this podcast. Help us grow the audience for the First Call podcast. And for those of you on our traditional audio channels, here's the 8-race lineup that Scott and I will handicap over the next half hour or so. We'll start out on Saturday with 3 races. First at Gulfstream, the Big Drama Stakes. Then we'll go to Belmont at the Big A for the Paradise Creek, to Churchill Downs for the Kirtana. Those are our 3 Saturday features that we'll look at. We've got one for you on Sunday. That is the Santa Margarita graded stakes, the only graded stakes in the country on Sunday. That from the Great Race Place. And then on Monday, we'll finish with 4 more races to handicap. The winning colors at Churchill Downs under the Twin Spires, and then 3 races on a massive card at Santa Anita. Couple grade 1s and a grade 2. We've got the Gamely and the Shoemaker Mile on turf, and the Hollywood Gold Cup on the main track. Those are the 8 races we will get to handicapping starting right now. Scott, let's go to the Big Drama Stakes. It is Gulfstream Park race number 10 on Saturday's card. The Big Drama, of course, named for the Breeders' Cup Sprint winner. David Falk's trained that one. More of a modern contemporary horse to have a stakes race named for him. So it should be a main track sprint, and it is at 7/8 of a mile. And some horses that we've seen consistently at Gulfstream Park, a local type cast in this one, including Air Combat coming off a really good run right now. He's won 4 in a row. Can he make it 5 stepping up in the stakes company?
I think you can, JP, moving into the Jose D'Angelo barn. Interestingly enough, this is a 6-year-old son of Blame. I remember this horse in 2021 as a 2-year-old made a start for Bob Baffert, Johnny Ortiz after that, and then went through Brad Cox and Steve Asmussen. But he's in the best form of his career right now, and he's doing it at Gulfstream Park. I think there's a lack of speed in this race as well. Mm-hmm. Now, the 7 furlongs could be stretching it if he takes some pressure. But I think he's going to get that perfect trip from the outside. David Falk, you mentioned, the trainer of Big Drama. He's got a couple in here as well. But Air Combat looks like he's in the best form and should be able to handle the class hike.
It is 7/8 of a mile, not 6, as you mentioned. But, boy, speed should still be a premium in here because there's not much of it. I think if you can make the front end here, you've got a reasonable chance. We know he's in good form. Let's introduce the fans to Air Combat. He is a winner here. Most recently, of course, he's been a winner in 4 straight races.
Seconds flat. The leader is Mish, but he has work to do as Air Combat's under a full head of steam. At the rail, Into Pleasure tries to thread the needle there, 1/8 of a mile from home. Air Combat, he rallies forward to take a clear lead. At the rail, Into Pleasure tries to get into second with Mish to the wire. Air Combat and Johnny V are in front.
Dilger, the 9-5 morning line favorite for Safi Joseph, coming off a 3rd in the Carter behind the deep closer, Crazy Mason in that one. Dilger with a little drop in class back to Gulfstream Park where he's won 2 of 4. He'll be the main opposition, but Scott's got Air Combat making it 5 in a row, winning the big drama stakes. Now let's go to the Paradise Creek Stakes. Next up, race number 10 at Belmont at the Big A on Saturday. And Paradise Creek was a really good turfer. You almost can't mention his name without saying Lure, because Lure and Paradise Creek ran against each other over and over and over in the early 90s. And this was the precursor to Cigar for Bill Mott. I mean, Paradise Creek was the big horse in his barn a year or two before Cigar became the big horse in his barn, and of course, it made so much history. But Paradise Creek was not a turf sprinter, but we are sprinting on the turf in the Paradise Creek. This is interesting to me for a negative aspect. I'll just kind of get on the soapbox a little bit here, Scott. This is the only stakes race Memorial Day weekend on the NYRA circuit. And would you think what Memorial Day used to be with the Met Mile and how important that day was on the racing calendar? Everything is just lopped into the card on Belmont Stakes Festival week now at Saratoga. They extended it to 4 days this year. And, you know, a couple stakes races moved from Saturday to Friday to try to boost the Friday card. Saturday's completely loaded on Belmont Stakes Day, but at the mercy of what? The week before the Belmont, 2 weeks before the Belmont, one stakes in a holiday weekend, and it's a 6 furlong turf sprint for 3-year-olds. A little disappointing. I mean, you got the momentum. That's the other thing. You know, we talk about the positioning of the Triple Crown races. Think about the momentum. You have the Derby. 2 weeks later, you have the Preakness. And then you got this, like, what next? And, like, if you had people who got really into it, Griffin Johnson or somebody got you really into racing it, like, in the last 3 weeks, what are you going to do for 2? You know, I mean, we didn't put out a great product this holiday weekend.
Yeah, you set me up. I'm very happy to spike it home for you because this is my least favorite decision. And it was made before a lot of the other recent things that have frustrated some of us. But moving the Met Mile, you know, to Belmont Day is a very unpopular decision by me. That was the first day I really remember going to the racetrack. It was Jersey Derby Day at Garden State Park. It was Met Mile Day. We got to watch the simulcast. You know, for those that are younger, it was a treat to get to watch these simulcasted races. And I really missed the Met Mile on Monday. Now, if you want to make the argument that the Met Mile strengthens the Belmont card, okay. What about some of those second-tier stakes races sprinkled throughout that Belmont Racing Festival at Saratoga? We can't get 1 or 2 of those. I find it troubling, but probably a molehill compared to some other things these days.
Yeah, I mean, even like if you had the Ogden Phipps or something like that, and you had Torpedo Anna running this week instead of running on Oaks Day, you know, and you had that kind of spot, there'd be more momentum in out of the Triple Crown and to the final leg of the Triple Crown than just lumping them all on the final day. But let's handicap the Paradise Creek and try to dissect this field of 9 turf sprinters in here. Again, restricted to just 3-year-olds. So this is a race that's got a lot of qualifications to it, right? You're just a 3-year-old. You're just a turfer. You're just a turf sprinter. So these horses may not turn out to be the top horses that we see later on in the turf sprint division. A lot of what ifs to these kind of fields, but how do they fit amongst each other, and how do we come out of here with the winner?
Well, I think the pace is going to be honest, like you would expect in a lot of these turf sprints. I think, you know, the importer, number 7, Supersonic Blue, I know a horse we're going to take a look at in a moment, is amongst those with Pratt. Maybe we'll be relaxed a little bit off a 6.5 furlong race. But I think number 4, Assertiveness, is going to get a real good trip here. And I think the cutback is going to be what he wants. Don't think they planned for a $650,000 Son of Into Mischief out of the damn Isabel Sings to kind of want less ground. You remember Isabella Sings had a lot of success down at Gulfstream in those, you know, early 3-year-old, I believe, late 2-year-old in those races, 2 turns down at Gulfstream. But this horse struggled to relax last time in a race that absolutely fell apart. It was Massero at Keeneland for Romans coming from last to first basically to win it. And I thought he held together pretty well. The race before it, he beat a horse at Dublin's Night who came back and won for absolute fun at Keeneland as well. So he's kept good company. So at 8-1, I thought Assertiveness was some pretty good value.
This field's got a lot of what you would expect for a turf sprint in New York. A couple George Weavers, you got a Pletcher, you've got a Wesley Ward, but you don't expect to see Neil Drysdale from Southern California. He's brought horses east over the years, and some of them have been turf sprinters, but at this stage of his career, Drysdale has a decent one in Supersonic Blue, and he gets Pratt to ride. They last appeared in the John Shear Stakes. Edward Maldonado was aboard that day, but Supersonic Blue coming east is an interesting one.
To get going from behind. line. Just 6 lengths front to back. They have a quarter of a mile to go. Supersonic Blue. Cali Cat makes a very wide bid. Muscled even wider. Artislas is coming with the orange cap. They're coming toward the 8th pole. And Supersonic Blue has a short lead. Cali Cat in the center. Artislas bearing down on them. And on the outside of them comes Muscled. Driving finish. Supersonic Blue clings to the lead. Supersonic Blue. Artislas on the outside. Supersonic Blue all the way in the John Shear.
We'll see how he handles the trip east in the Paradise Creek Stakes, that Belmont at the Big A. Big weekend feature amongst the 4-day holiday weekend. That's the only stakes on the Diver Circuit. To Churchill Downs we go on Saturday for the featured Kirtana. 1.5 miles on the turf. Kirtana was a nice mare, $1 million earner for trainer Tom Proctor. You would expect him to go long on the turf. She won some of the races like the Bewitch at Keeneland, the Louisville Handicap. She was long on the turf, so this one makes a lot of sense in her name. We've got a field of, 8 in this spot here, Scott. How do you see him shaken out after 12 furlongs?
Yeah, I think the horse to beat in here is Turnima, who's 3-1 on the line. Would probably take a lot of support. Had an absolutely terrible trip on April 23rd. Rumor has it you remember the trip, but I didn't want to remind you too much about
Yeah, I needed her that day.
it. Brendan Walsh was red hot that day, and I think she might have won that race. But I think she's going to take a lot of money in here, and I think Sugary should end up being pretty good value because of it. If you look, Sugary beat her last time with the, getting the benefit of Turnima getting that rough trip. But if you look at the start before, I know Sugary finished behind her. I thought she ran better. She got a much more difficult trip. She ran into trouble early in that race, whereas I thought Turnima did not have an excuse in there. So number 6, Sugary, to me, makes some sense here for Arnaud de la Cour. A very capable trainer, and this horse seems to fit where she belongs or where she needs to be competitive in a race like this.
$250,000 stakes listed company. So they are making a big rise in class out of that first level allowance. Let's go back to see Sugary and Turnima running 1-3 at Keeneland.
By a lake. Oh, now here comes all kinds of company because Sugary is on the outside. Here's Turnima diving to the inside of Parrish Lane. Parrish Lane, a stubborn foe. Sugary is trying. Turnima still third. Down to the wire. Sugary pokes ahead in front. Sugary to win it for Flavian Pratt. Valiant effort, but runner-up.
Scott, I think you do have responsibility to get a souvenir ticket in here, though. Boss Lady Bailey is running, of course. Bailey Armour, your co-host on the Horse Sense podcast. She's vacationing somewhere in the tropics right now with her toes in the sand, so she's going to miss out on Boss Lady Bailey. Maybe she'll get the phone out and place some wagers. I don't know where she's at, if it's even legal to place a wager, but we got to get something on Boss Lady Bailey for her.
We've talked about Boss Lady Bailey. I think we might have analyzed a race with her at one point, but I really like this horse at a big price way back one time at Keeneland maybe, or I don't know. But Saez obviously riding maybe as well as ever. And, this is a little long, though, for our friend Bailey. So maybe she's not the Boss Lady. Maybe she's got another name. She likes those turf sprints.
All right, let's move now from Churchill Downs on Saturday to the Sunday card at Santa Anita. Again, those $3,000 late pick 4 hit and splits will continue all weekend, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and Monday, if you're playing with First Bet and Express Bet at Santa Anita. So part of those late pick 4 hit and splits, be sure to take part in those. Opt into the promos this weekend when playing Santa Anita. Also on Saturday at Santa Anita, the $500 Santa Anita Challenge handicapping tournament going on. A big slate of handicapping qualifiers and tournaments this holiday weekend. ExpressBet.com/tournaments. Be sure to check that out. You can't play tournaments at First Bet, only at Express Bet. So be sure to check out the tournaments page there. We shift gears to Sunday. The Santa Margarita is race number 3 on the card. Sunday at the Great Race Place. This will not be part of that late pick 4, obviously. Third race on the card, though, has a field of 6 and a filly that we're pretty familiar with, Alpha Bella. She's been running in a lot of the big stakes races, whether on dirt or on turf. couple starts back, she was a good second in the La Cañada, and she's back on the dirt again this weekend.
Approaching the quarter pole, Cavalieri ahead in front. Now it's a neck on Chatalas. Alpha Bella is trying to come after that new leader, Cavalieri. Cavalieri turns for home. Alpha Bella unleashed on the outside. These two square off at the 8th pole. Here's Alpha Bella right to Cavalieri. Cavalieri, Alpha Bella, head to head, nose to nose, coming to the 16th pole. Cavalieri and Juan Hernandez, they have something left, and Cavalieri remains undefeated as she scores in the La Cañada.
Cavalieri is in training right now. We'll probably see her at Del Mar this summer. She's not in this mile in an 8th grade 2 Santa Margarita. That's good news probably for the competition as well as she's been running. Other good news is Copion went east and went to Churchill Downs and stayed going short when she ran a cracker in the Derby City Distaff for trainer Richard Mandela. So some of these company lines, you see these horses with Cavalieri and Copion, they're getting a significantly easier task, even though we're in the grade 2 ranks here, Scott.
They sure are. Now, we do have Alpha Bella listed in the Gamely on Monday as well. I'm hopeful that John Sadler will stick to the main track. I think that's her best chance. But I like her quite a bit in here, and I like her a lot because, A, the pace is going to be honest, and B, I think Splendora has a very big chance to get over betting here. This is a filly. You liked Ricci last time in the Santa Maria, right, on April 19th. And really, Splendora, that race did not look so great on paper to us before, and kind of somebody had to be second. I think a lot of people are going to assume Splendora is kind of the next one up, if you will. Right. I'm not so sure she's as good as we think. We could pay the price, but if the pace is honest, Alpha Bella's had some excuses in her recent dirt races. The race she showed in the La Cañada, she was caught that was when she saved ground when the outside was good on a dead rail that day. And then the race behind it in the Beholder Mile, she was 4 wide throughout that day. And, she was handily beaten in the Beholder Mile of grade 1, but she had a pretty good excuse for it. So she gets class relief, like you mentioned, even though it might not seem as much. And I think she gets a good pace to run at.
I've never been one to stir the pot. You know me well enough now that, I'm not out to just raise a little controversy. But Michael McCarthy's got the 2 Princess of Time going against 2 Bob Bafferts in here. If the trip's a little rugged, maybe we've seen it before. I don't know. Maybe we've seen it before. Before we get any trouble, let's go to winning colors. Let's just get out of there and get onto the holiday Monday picnic slate here. Get the tablecloths out, get the hot dogs on the grill. Monday, the Memorial Day card at Churchill Downs features the winning colors stakes. And we have 3 races that we're going to handicap from Santa Anita on a big Monday card as well. So let's extend the podcast through the holiday weekend here and go to the winning colors stakes, named for the 1988 Kentucky Derby winner and one of the hardest luck losers in Breeders' Cup history, when second that fall in the distaff to the great personal incident in the final jump. Winning colors. This is a 6-furlong sprint, grade 3 company here. This is a pretty good looking group. You've got some horses who are very accomplished and have been around the stakes blocks into Champagne, Bright Work amongst those. You've got Hope Road, a horse who's got a ton of talent from the West Coast for Baffert, who stayed after running in the Derby City Distaff. And then you've got one like Too Sharp, who looked like could be the international good thing last year at the tail of her 3-year-old year. She's back for her first start at 4 for trainer Phil Bauer. He's not hitting at the numbers this year as he did last year, but the barn seems to be perking back up just a little bit. What do you make of Too Sharp? She's a big X factor in here in a race that's really of high quality.
It really is a fun race, and I think Too Sharp drew very favorably, being on the outside, cutting back to 6 furlongs. She raced in the Chaluki, which we'll see in a moment, at 8 furlongs last out. Should give Junior Alvarado, who'll be back aboard, options. And you mentioned Phil Bauer, not as hot this year, but the thing to note about Bauer, I got to kind of learn his barn and then even speak to him a number of times when I had my time in Churchill, a little before he got real hot like he had. But he points to 2 meets, Churchill period, spring and fall, as well as Saratoga. So him not winning early this year does not bother me as much. Plus, you look at the fact that off of the last 2 years, off a 90 to 180-day break, 4 for 13 for a 264 ROI. So I think with the right horses coming back, he has gotten them ready to roll off the layoff. And this one looks like one that he has been waiting for this meet and should be set for a pretty big 4-year-old campaign.
The Sharps line up for Too Sharp. She's run 5 times. She's been 4 to 5 or less every single trip. I mean, people love the better, and she's delivered for them for the most part. 3 wins, 2 seconds from 5 starts. The last time we saw her was in the fall in the Chaluki, as we mentioned. Let's take a look back. Travis Stone with the call.
Leads down to 4. Ouvra's now second. Royal Spa's now third. Taxed races up into fourth. There's a furlong to go. And Too Sharp keeps on going. The lead's back to 5. Royal Spa running up on the outside of Ouvra. 16th to go. Too Sharp comes roaring home decisively to win it by 7. Effortlessly at that.
Now, what do you make of Bright working here? She's also coming off the long layoff. Johnny Ortiz got hot during the Keeneland meet. He's maintained it. He's hitting at 20% here early in the Churchill meet. He's got 33% in the exactas. So he's hitting pretty well right now. Brightwork's been off since October when losing in the TCA, running a decent third that day to Zeitlos as the favorite. But she was a pretty good 2-year-old, a really good 2-year-old. Her 3-year-old season was abbreviated. She's 5 for 8 lifetime. Now we see her at age 4. Where do you think she might be? I haven't had a chance to see any of her workouts on video at Keeneland, but what do you make of Brightwork?
Well, generally speaking, the fillies that peak at 2, I try to fade as they, move toward later on in their career. Now, she ran some good races, but the one thing I think in this point of her career, particularly off the layoff and with Johnny V aboard, she might be better with an outside draw, especially off the layoff. I think there's going to be a lot of pressure on her to break well and go off a layoff. I think, not strong in this field, a major play against, but I think that inside draw really will work against her when you combine it with the layoff. She's going to have to be really good and have her running shoes on right away to break well enough to, get a good position early and be able to, save enough energy to have something late.
4 of these 9 in the grade 3 winning colors have raced in grade 1 company. The one who's going to be favorite, though, it will be back in grade 3 company again, that being Too Sharp. I say she'll be favored because she's always favored. 4 to 5 or less in every start. What price do you think she might be in this field? This is a tougher test than some of the ones she's had in the past, though. That race in the Chaluki was a pretty good one. There were some decent runners in that one.
Yeah, no doubt about it. I think this is the tallest task that she's faced yet, the way it's, on the calendar and whatnot. Let's see. What does he have? What does Mike have him on the morning line? Have her on the morning 8 to 5. Oof. I think. 2 to 1 seems like a really lot of money in this field, right? Hope Road just ran second to Copian twice. We're Too Sharp hasn't done anything of that note, but maybe if she goes off below 8 to 5, I hate to say it, but the Bauer money when it comes in, it's often right.
Yeah, she's always hammered. I would not be surprised if she gets bet a little bit harder than expected. But like you said, this is the toughest test of her career to this point. Let's switch gears now and talk about the 3 tri-features on the Monday card at Santa Anita, the Great Race Place Memorial Day card. Again, we've got Jeff Siegel handicapping all weekend for us at expressbet.com and at news.first.com. So check out Jeff's What You Need to Know blog each and every day. He takes you through every race, gives you strategies on multi-race wagers, and sets the blogs up in a really easy and digestible format. So check out Jeff's selections there. Let's start with the Gamely Stakes amongst the tri-features on the Monday card. The Gamely grade 1 here at 1 mile and an 1/8 on the grass, and Alpha Bella cross-entered in this race. She's also entered in the Santa Margarita. You would like to see her on the dirt. Of course, this race at 1 mile and an 1/8 on the turf. There are plenty of turf runners in here with some stout past performance lines. Be Your Best, maybe the best of those, with winning the Pegasus World Cup filly and mare turf. She got up to win by a neck 2 starts back. Last time out in the Jenny Wiley at Keeneland. A little bit closer to the pace there and a little quicker pace perhaps that on a softish turf course that kind of did her in. But at her best, Be Your Best is awfully good. Let's take a look at her with Pete Aiello with the call.
Nobody running home with much authority from the back as Rakia tries to take up the slack. She's into third. Off the turn and the stretch drive in the Pegasus World Cup filly and mare turf. The leader is still in our time. She's trying to get another furlong. Be Your Best up on the outside. Be Your Best roused forward by Zayas, and she takes the lead now. Late run from Sacred Wish. She's trying to level off. Sacred Wish is gaining ground, but Be Your Best is holding. It's Be Your Best to win the Pegasus World Cup filly and mare turf.
Saffy Joseph's got a couple of his stable runners headed west, so he's going to bring her along for the ride for the Grade 1 gambling. He'll have Skippy Longstocking in the Hollywood Gold Cup as well. Scott, this series of long turf races at Santa Anita throughout the course of the classic meet that they run winter, spring, and now into this Hollywood meet, we've seen some upsets in this series, so it could be ripe for a new filly to come in. Lady Claypool won the Santa Ana at 11-1. We also had an upset winner in the Royal Heroine, that being Public Assembly at 8-1. Those two are back again. But when you start to see price horses win consistently within a division of runners at a particular track, it kind of tells you there is no leader of the pack when it comes to that. And those races, I think, often are susceptible to horses coming in from out of town. That would put me on Be Your Best if she runs her top race.
Yeah, that's who I'm on as well. And it's interesting. Saffy Joseph Jr. has only started 7 runners in Southern California over the last 5 years. The only win was Soul of an Angel. But as you might suspect, 6 of the 7 were in Breeders' Cup races.
Were those Breeders' Cups? Yeah.
Cup. What's that?
I was going to say, were those Breeders' Cups?
Yeah, they were all, but Skippy Longstocking went out there once. That's the only, and I think he ran second, if I'm not mistaken. But either way, it's an interesting move. But you mentioned Skippy, we'll talk about in a moment, going along for the ride. But what I like here is lack of speed, and I think Irad Ortiz knows this horse well enough right now to know that if there is a lack of speed, getting her into the race early is the correct play because. Not only might she be one of the best horses, if not the best, being the fresh face, but she could have a pace advantage.
When it comes to these fillies and mares, the grade is so important, right? Because this is going to set their value as brood mares. Grade 1 place, Grade 1 winner. It's not necessarily about the purse. The purse here is a decent $300,000, but for a Grade 1, that's not necessarily Grade 1 level kind of purse money. But you get Graham Motion to come west with No Show Sammy Joe. You get Brendan Walsh to come west with Expensive Queen. You've got Saffy coming west. Getting Grade 1s on the turf and what might not be as tough a spot as what we'd say in the Just a Game on the Belmont undercard or something at Saratoga this summer. This could be a highly valuable move for some of these horsemen, owners, trainers, bringing their horses west to win this race because down the line, the foals and the broodmare value are going to be worth a lot more if they can get that Grade 1 type.
That's a great point. And I mean, when I think about it, Be Your Best, do I consider her a Grade 1 turf type horse? Probably not, but that's why Saffy Joseph is willing to ship her across country right now to kind of quote unquote steal one. I don't know if the Jenny Wiley was all that great, but we did have the European influence in there as well. But I, like you said, when Chad starts to roll in the Saratogas this time of the summer, the Just a Game, that's when we'll probably see the toughest in this division.
Be Your Best has been to Santa Anita before when she was under Horatio De Paz's shed row, coming west for the American Oaks back in her 3-year-old year at the end of 2023. She ran a good second over this turf course. So she knows the way to Santa Anita. Now she's found her way back, and she knows her way around that oval with a pretty good effort there in the American Oaks a couple years back. So the Gamely Stakes, race number 7, Grade 1 company for the fillies and mares on the grass. To the 8th we go, and it is the Hollywood Gold Cup, Grade 2, $200,000 race. The long history of the Hollywood Gold Cup going back to the late Hollywood Park and before coming to Santa Anita, 2013, 2014, moving to Santa Anita. This obviously is not one of the vintage editions of the Gold Cup. And since it's come to Santa Anita, we have seen some good ones, the Accelerates and horses like that who have run in this race. This one just doesn't particularly have a strong set in Southern California in the handicap division to begin with. The purse now down to $200,000 for the Gold Cup at 1.25 miles. So you bring a horse like Skippy Longstocking, who has been masterfully campaigned around the country. They'll run him kind of anywhere where he fits. 2-time winner of the Charlestown Classic, 3-time winner of the Challenger at Tampa Bay Downs. You think of him going to the West Virginia Derby when he was a 3-year-old. He has been as well campaigned, Daniel Alonso, the owner, trainer Saffy Joseph Jr., as just about any horse that I can think of in the handicap division over the last 15, 20 years. He is placed in spots where he can win. Some years you'd say, why in the world would you bring this horse, a miler, out to the Hollywood Gold Cup at 1.25 miles? But then you look at this year's field and the situation. For $200,000, he's going to be odds on, and they've got him beautifully placed again.
They sure do. And if you look at his success, it's mostly when he's very short prices or the favorite at the very least, and then I really respect that they are willing to take the chances though when they present themselves. He hasn't answered the call for the most part, but he finished second or third in the Belmont Stakes for them as well. So he has been useful for a very long time. And he looks like he's found a very good spot here to be able to try to pull off a 1.25 mile victory. He draws favorably outside the runners that I expect to show early speed. Not sure if that matters, but Irad Ortiz will be aboard. Last out, broke sharp, and he stalked right off an 82-1 long shot in the Oaklawn handicap. That horse barely finished the race. So being around for third against better competition, I think serves him well heading into this race, as long as he can prove that he can get that 1.25 mile finally.
That's the whole thing. And when you look at his pedigree, like I long advocate that the stamina of a horse comes from the dam side of the pedigree. You're more worried about the dam sire and the bottom of a pedigree on how far a horse is going to go, and you get the brilliance from the top. And this horse is upside down. He's got the stamina with exaggerator curling up top, and he's a miler on the dam side with the war chant as the dam sire. And that's how you end up with a middle distance horse. And a lot of times you'll see that like he's an in-betweener. He can beat softer competition going longer, but he can't be good competition going 1.1 1/8, 1.25 miles. He's got to be in the right kind of situation. Charlestown Classic, 1.1 1/8, but it's 3 turns on a bull ring, and that like just plays beautifully. That's why he's been really masterfully moved around. He's the perfect Breeders' Cup dirt mile horse. Third in that race a couple of years ago. Last year ended up 6th, but wasn't beaten all that far in a 13-horse field. Like he is that ultimate in-betweener. But now it's 1.25 miles, and 1.25 miles on a traditional mile oval like Santa Anita. He's going to have a long run into the 1 turn. He's going to have to go 2 turns. He's going to have the regular run of the stretch, about 990, I believe, at Santa Anita, to get him home. If he's going to get beat in here, where does it come from? You know, I don't know if Extensive, who's probably going to be second choice in here for McCarthy off 2 straight wins, I'm not sure he's a 1.25 mile horse either.
Well, that's the thing. We're looking at a mile where we're talking about worrying about a horse getting 1.25 miles, but you look around, then who are you worried about, out finishing him per se? Extensive is going to get, I don't want to say over bet because he probably has the most upside and the best ability to beat this horse. But this is a horse that's won 2 races at 4 so far, taking on a $3.5 million earner. His furthest trip is 1 mile and 1/16. He won very nicely last out, and he came home solid. But the horse that finished second is 1 for his last 19. So, I mean, this is a whole new world. And with the Pratt factor, it's going to be, if Extensive was going to be the 3rd or 4th choice, I would totally understand taking the upside swing. But as short as Skippy's going to be, I don't think it makes Extensive a big price.
No, an Extensive, again, you look at the pedigree by City of Light, who, mile and 1/8. But the daughter on the dam side, there's no, route there. There's no, 1.25 mile feeling in that one. Paxawala ran the 1.25 mile Charlie Whittingham on the turf last time and ran pretty well, but he's all grass. And again, he's got City Zip on the dam side of the pedigree. You don't think he's a 10 furlong horse. He's been a turf miler his entire career. So suddenly he's now a dirt 1.25 miles. Tarantino's had some shots in longer races, hasn't been able to hold. Midnight Mammoth the same way, backed up readily in the Santa Anita handicap over this trip. It just looks like it defaults to Skippy Longstocking, whether he can get the 1.25 miles or not. He can get the 1.25 miles in 2:03. That's probably going to be enough here.
I think I cut out there for a second. I'm back. You got me?
Yeah, and I think you cut out in a really weird looking pose too. So anybody who gets to see that,
oh man,
you're like in a half cough, and then all of a sudden it just kind of stops. So I think we made one for the blooper reel there anyway.
I had to move it to Wi-Fi. I don't know my wired connection spit the bit on a win. Weird.
Let's go with Shoemaker Mile next. This is I think the main event on the weekend at Santa Anita. This is a grade 1 and a true grade 1 here. The race it's produced, some of the top turf milers in Southern California and around the country. Defending champ Johannes is not in this race. He is back in training for Tim Yakteen and preparing for the Del Mar meet and a run towards the Breeders' Cup Mile again this year. But he's not in this race to defend his title. Yet we still have a really strong looking cast in here. I mean, you've got grade 1 winner Formidable Man. You've got multiple grade 1 placed horses, a multitude of grade 2 winners in this race. This is a good cast. It's a similar cast to what we saw in the Kilbro Mile. I think 4 or 5 of them coming out of the Kilbro Mile are back in here. We'll get a chance to look at that replay in just a bit. But Scott, your thoughts on the Shoemaker Mile field?
I thought it came up very strong even without Johannes, who I was a big fan of last year. Looking forward to him returning. Hopefully will be as good as last year. But I think we're going to have an honest pace in here. which is the most key. You've got 2 speed horses to the outside. Goliad and Mike Smith would be shocked, barring a good break, if he's not in part of the early proceedings. And Cabo Spirit, who comes off a wire-to-wire upset win and has only really one way to go. Yeah. I think it's going to benefit number 7, Mi Hermano Ramon, who I simply think, easily put, is the best finisher in this field. And I think that's going to serve him well with Hector Berrios jumping back aboard. He's had a couple of different riders. He's been around a little bit. Mark Glad even shipped him in for the Pegasus World Cup Turf Invitational, where he ran well. But Hector Berrios was on him 4 starts ago, and that was the last time he won. So I have no issue with Berrios taking over for Pratt and Sayas, 2 of the best in the world.
Let's go back and take a look at that Kilbro Mile now. It was won by Formidable Man. Zio Joe's going to run second. Cabo Spirit's going to run third. Or Zio or King of Gosford. Zio Joe ran second. Then Cabo Spirit was third. Goliad, or not Goliad in there, but who's the other one? Mi Hermano Ramon will end up fifth. Frank Miramati will sort it all out for you. Just watch.
Spirit and Zio Joe. Zio Joe comes to Cabo Spirit at the top of the stretch. Air Force Red looking for racing room. Formidable Man is coming through along the inside. Then Neat Mi Hermano Ramon still last at the 8th pole. Zio Joe, Cabo Spirit, nose and nose. Formidable Man. Almendares is coming with big strides. Here's Formidable Man. Formidable Man. What a ride from Reese Bully to take the Frankie Kilbro Mile. A blanket photo for second, but the Story McCarthy and Reese Bully strike right back.
Yeah, they've been the story for a couple weeks, right? I mean, that's what happens for Reese Bully when the rail opens up. It doesn't always open up, as we found out at Old Hilltop.
That was pretty ironic, that right there. But yeah, I mean, I think the key to that race is, maybe we get a little bit of a better price with people noticing that Mi Hermano Ramon finished 5th, but that was a dream run up the mail by Formidable Man. And I just think the race shape is going to play out a whole lot differently in here in the Shoemaker Mile, which if the pace is honest, I just love Mi Hermano Ramon's closing kick. We won the gallop out there, so that's all that really mattered then anyway.
Well, you're going to go from 4 to 5 to probably 5 to 1. I mean, I think that, I think there's going to be a major increase in price. So if you liked him at all last time, I think you're going to love him at the price that we're going to get. And I'm with you completely. This is the Express Bet race of the week, and I picked Mi Hermano Ramon on top in here. I'm with Scott in here. Hector Berrios rides. Look, you lose Flavian Pratt, but Berrios is riding well in Southern California, 23% at the meet, and a good turf jock as well here from Mark Glad. Having Flavian Pratt aboard was part of why he was 4 to 5 last time. So losing the rider, you might lose some of that skill, but you're going to get the value increase in this horse this time. I think Mi Hermano Ramon, very interesting. Another fact I want to throw in here, Goliad, 9 years old for trainer Richard Mandela, or 8 years old, I should say. He's only run 21 times, but Mandela's won this race 3 times in the past. He won it with Redditor, who was age 8. He won with Ballo Bally, who was age 7, and then he won it with the Tin Man, who was age 9. So average age of Mandela's winners of this race have been 8. I mean, it wouldn't be no shock if Goliad were to run a big race in here. He's going to have to overcome the pace situation, though, and that outside draw being outside of Cabo Spirit. He's either going to have to press him all the way around the track, or he's going to have to really send to kind of clear him, and that might leave him gassed at the end. But Goliad's got a tough challenge in here, but Mandela with these old turf milers, he's got a history.
He sure does. And I mean, Goliad almost dates as far back to me in California. That's how, I was there till 2018, and his debut win was 2019. But I think losing Pratt here might be a little bit more telltale. If he had Pratt aboard like he did in his most recent win in Kentucky Downs, I think that would give him a better chance of rationing out that speed. No disrespect to the Hall of Famer Mike Smith, but different levels of riding at this point in their careers.
No disrespect to any jockeys during the course of this podcast. or any tough rides.
None of them.
Disclaimer, all of this was meant for amusement purposes only, except the handicapping portion that was meant for going to the windows. Hopefully you have a great weekend playing over Memorial Day. Have a safe weekend, everybody. Opening night at Canterbury, I want to remind you, Saturday night, we've got that $3,000. This is a cash late pick four hit and split at Santa Anita. So if you hit the late pick four at Santa Anita Friday, Saturday, Sunday, or Monday, each day there's $3,000 in additional cash for players at First Bet and Express Bet. You'll get your pari-mutuel winnings, and then you'll share with just other players on our platforms who hit the late pick four. There could be one or two of you. You might take the whole $3,000. You might take $1,500. If 10 of you hit, you'll get $300 a piece. A really good promo. So be sure to take advantage of that. And pick fours aren't pick fives, right? They're a little easier to hit. You're not looking for the mega return. The ticket cost is a little bit cheaper, but when you spruce it up with $3,000 in additional money, it certainly can give you a tremendous value. Also, that Santa Anita Challenge for tournament players coming up on Saturday for a $500 entry fee. Go to the tournaments page at expressbet.com for much, much more. Scott, this has been a fun one. It's flown by. 39 minutes, 46 seconds on the clock right now. I'll let you have the final word.
Yeah, it has been fun. A little bit of joking, a lot of serious handicapping, though, I promise you. And the one thing I will double down on is the hit it splits. I've been involved in a couple of those, hitting those. A lot of misses as well, but I've always been overly satisfied with the amount I've gotten back, whether it be for the rewards points that equal cash or in the cash situation. So remember to opt in and register for those promotions that were added a little late this week. I think they're very worthwhile at the Great Race Place.
On behalf of everybody with First Bet and Express Bet, my partner Jeff Siegel, keep those good thoughts and prayers heading in for him. And for our handicapper this week, Scott Shapiro, I'm Jeremy Plonk. Have a great Memorial Day weekend, everybody.